Hi, I'm Mary Cross and welcome to the Building Bliss podcast. Today's guest is Liz Folan, and if you know me and you've watched some of the episodes, you know that I love a bit of fate and the universe putting things in your way. And I actually met Liz through one of our other guests, Jess Bartle, who was on in series 1. And from that, this morning I've been on Liz's radio slot, the Feel Good Friday on Liverpool Live with her and Roy Basnett. And now we're recording our podcast. So it just shows you never know where the universe is going to take you.
You never know. No. You never know. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. So
it's
welcome,
magical.
Liz.
Thank you very much.
So I've just said I've just been doing some LinkedIn snooping on you, and it says you are a positive psychologist and a alcohol-free advocate.
Absolutely.
And obviously you've got your radio show. Do you want to tell us a bit about those sort of three dimensions?
Well, as a positive psychologist, I've actually been a teacher. I'm a teacher as well.
Right.
I don't broadcast that on LinkedIn because I don't want teaching work, to be honest, because I'm backing away from that side of things. But I ended up doing a lot of positive psychology work with students. This was before COVID. So in the past 10 to 15 years, as I was going on my own journey, my own personal transformation journey, I was finding that I could bring tools into the classroom and outside of the classroom. So I had a little group called the Good Wolf, and it's based on the old Cherokee, I think it's a Cherokee, I don't know, parable, where there's, do you know it?
I've heard of that one.
Right? So it's basically, there's a story, and it goes like this. There's an old man, a granddad, and he's talking to his grandson, and he says, grandson, in life there's a wolf, there are two wolves inside of you. One is a good wolf that represents love and joy and bravery and kindness, and the other's a bad wolf that represents hatred and spite and mean-spiritedness and greed. And the young boy looks at his granddad and he said, "But granddad, which one wins?" And the granddad says, "The one you feed."
Right. I love that.
So it's something that resonated with me when I came upon it. And as a result of that, I used to call my little group the Good Wolf group. And I would, encourage the children to implement positive psychology strategies. But I also ran it with staff as well, because I was increasingly finding more and more of my colleagues were on their knees. And they needed it. They needed it. So I introduced mindfulness, I introduced gratitude practices, random acts of kindness around the school, and it was wonderful. But I knew I was growing out of teaching. I love the alchemy of the classroom, but I was just getting jaded from the whole, chopping wood, carrying water, data, blah, blah.
Yeah, all the admin side is
we know.
Yeah.
So as a result, I retrained and I did a master's in positive psychology and set myself up, took that big leap and set myself up as a positive psychology coach, and wrote Resilience based on a lot of what we had done already in The Good Wolf. I wrote a resilience course and I called it Rise.
Oh, wonderful.
And I now go into schools, I go into colleges, I go into workplaces, and I do corporate gigs, I do seminars, I'm trained as a public speaker, so I started going down that route, and things have just absolutely picked up hugely since I took that leap. Yeah. So that's kind of what got me there. Yeah. In the first place. So that's kind of who I am.
Yeah. So where did you find this concept of positive psychology? Because that's not something that I've heard of previously.
Yeah. It's interesting because originally most of what I was doing was positive psychology, but I didn't realise it.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm very interested. I've always followed really inspirational podcasters. So Rich Roll would have been one of my podcast influences from when I was training because I like running. Yeah. So when I was training to run marathons, I'd listen to him, and he introduced me to lots of really interesting people and philosophers, psychologists, sociologists. But I started to realise that a lot of the interventions that they were talking about, I could implement in the classroom and with teachers. And one of the key ones was mindfulness. And I did a foundation in mindfulness course, and it changed my life. Yeah. Because I realised I was on autopilot. Yeah. I was completely on autopilot. Yeah. The other thing I did, which also incorporates what we call positive psychology, is the artist's way.
Ah, yes, yeah.
So Julia Cameron's work changed my life. Yeah. And I've done morning pages for the past 10 years. Yeah. And now I I facilitate, I deliver it myself. But my Artist's Way teacher, Helen Collins, sorry, was absolutely phenomenal in giving me the skills to realize that creativity is for everybody, to democratize creativity. And the process of being creative is an anti-stressor and enables you to live the best life you can. So that's what I started to do in these sessions. And I didn't realize that these were what they call positive psychology implementations.
Right.
I looked into doing a master's in Bangor in mindfulness because I knew I really wanted to branch out and coach and get into that area. And one day, just fell on my lap, they decided they were going to start a new course in Liverpool in John Moores University. My friend was looking for a course for herself, and she went, Liz, I think this would suit you. It's positive psychology. And both of us went, what's that? It sounds interesting, but what is it? And I thought, well, I haven't got a degree in psychology, probably won't get on the course. Looked into it, and as I read it, I just lit up. Everything that I was doing. And also, Mary, at this stage, I had stopped drinking.
Right.
So part of my mindfulness journey had, and I'll talk about that in more detail later, but part of my mindfulness journey brought me to, Artist's Way, brought me to Morning Pages, brought me to a few stark, sharp realizations. And I stopped drinking and joined a community called Soberistas. And that was just full of positive psychology and coaching and cheering and cheerleading and opting for non-alcoholic living as a joyous thing.
As a positive.
What? And the more I embodied that philosophy, the more I realized that positive psychology, I'm doing it anyway. And I've got all that's it, the research. I'm listening to all the podcasts, I'm reading, like coming here to the studio. I was just looking, you just showed me Mo Gaudat's book Unstressable, and I was like, yes, I just downloaded it yesterday. It only came out yesterday, and both of us are very nerdy about that. But and I'm looking around, and you've got Simon Sinek and the Toiler, and I'm like, this is amazing. These are my people. And I had already found them, and they'd really inspired me. But to know that there's a course that is a certified master's course, and I can do it, and it's on my doorstep, and I'm in the first cohort. It's my first year. I did the guy who was running it, or who still runs it, Peter Malininsky, I did his head in. Because as soon as I was accepted, I said, what's core reading? I want to have it all. I want to do it now.
I'm going to be super nerdy.
And while I'm here, may I make some suggestions? So I literally did. I sent him a whole list. My friend in the office with me was just like, oh, Jesus, you're scaring him away before you've even started the course. But I did it, and that's what got me into it. So to get back to the question, like, what is positive psychology? I do tend to ramble. Positive psychology is essentially... It's a psychology that focuses on what's strong in us as opposed to what's wrong in us.
Love that.
It's amazing. It's the psychology of flourishing.
That's great, and a real sort of embodiment of the Building Bliss podcast as well.
That's why I just, when I heard Jess on your podcast, it just made me aware of what you're doing, and instantly there was just such synchronicity. I just thought, oh, that is exactly what I do. That's exactly what we talk about all the time. So that's basically it. Positive psychology is highlighting in people what their strengths are, and there are measurable ways of finding these strengths. I work with them. It's called the character strength, the VIA, values in action. And once you become aware of what your strengths are, your signature strengths are, you realize that, when you use them, they're effortless, they energize you, they're your essence. And it's magic. It's magic. I bring it into classrooms and workplaces, and I give it to friends, I give it to family as a gift, and I encourage everybody I work with to share it widely as well.
It's so good. Such a gift. Especially in schools and teenagers in particular, because the default setting is negativity. And we've all got that inner critic, haven't we? Why are you doing that? What are people going to say if you do that? You're not really qualified to do that. It's a constant loop. But I love the fact that the fact that it rhymes and it says it's what's strong in you, not what's wrong in you. I mean, it's a perfect embodiment.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good way. And the thing also with the booze, giving up booze, was realizing that you don't need to hit rock bottom to jump off that lift.
Yeah.
And realizing that, oh my goodness, this is my brain just adapting to stressors.
Yeah.
So I've just used this substance, which is, oh, by the way, highly addictive. Who knew, huh?
Yeah.
And when you practice imbibing this highly addictive substance, what's going to happen? Oh, wow, your brain is going to respond and create these mad things called neural pathways. Didn't know any of that before I stopped drinking.
Yeah.
Started to dabble in neuroscience, then the positive psychology side of things. And I realised that we are not stuck. We're not stuck. We don't have to be stuck. And that's why I feel so passionate about this message.
Yeah.
I feel so passionate about what you do,
Yeah.
what I do, because if I heard this years ago, it would have been the kick up the backside I needed.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
But I meet people, as do you, I'm sure, day in, day out, kids,
Yeah.
who
They're
are
just
stuck.
Yeah.
And these limiting beliefs, these social programs that we like labour under, the kind of, the scripts that we follow. I must do this, and this is the way it should, that toxic word.
Yeah, terrible word.
So yeah, I want to start as young as I can with students, but I do see light bulb moments all the time with young people, and I'm so humbled to see it and so privileged. I just feel really
it must be so
lucky.
rewarding. Yeah. But it's so important to realise you're not stuck. Another book I've just bought is Dr. Tara Swartz.
Oh yes,
about neuroplasticity.
Love
and
it.
she was saying, even if you've got like neurodivergence or whatever, anyone can actually change their brain. And the key factor is wanting to do it.
Yeah.
But obviously sometimes you need a push, don't you, to get to that point.
You do, and sometimes you need to know that you can change it.
Yeah.
If you don't know that, and so what I say to people, like, when you talk about traditional psychology, we say, you name it and you tame it. Yeah. So you give somebody what label, you'll give them, the diagnosis, and then they can work on it. They can manage it, name it and tame it. Well, with character strengths, I've coined the phrase, name it and claim it.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, love that. Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Because when you find what your strengths are and they light you up, you're claiming the essence of who you are, your authenticity.
Yeah.
Nobody can challenge you when you're being authentic.
And no one can take it away from you.
No one can take it away from you.
Yeah.
And I think to me, that's what changed my life. Is that, and it did come, it was a gradual awakening, but the biggest thing was the booze.
Yeah.
Because that's the fog is gone.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sure we'll come on to that more.
Yeah.
Later,
I know I keep coming back because I get so excited about it, but it's wonderful.
Yeah. So we'll dive into the questions.
Why
then.
not?
So
They're
the
wonderful.
Building Bliss podcast is founded on the 5 pillars of bliss,
Yeah.
which are bravery, laughter, inspiration, spark, and success. So starting with the B for bravery, can you pinpoint one moment in your life that you think was your bravest?
Yeah, I can actually, and I can. It's a strange one because I talk a lot about micro moments of joy when we're talking about building a flourishing life. But this was a micro moment, a tiny decision. And it was one Sunday night, and I'd been dabbling with giving up booze, doing dry January, doing the odd. My friends used to jokingly call me a stopaholic because I was always like, it's February, I'm going to call it Fun February and give up booze.
Stoptober.
It's Stoptober, I did that,
yeah.
No November.
Yeah.
I don't know, does it exist? But that's what I called it.
Yeah.
No November. and this one night in particular, it was February, just a random February night. And I had given up booze for a while, decided to, because I was a moderate drinker in my head, I had told myself, decided to go back onto it again for the Christmas, just to be sociable. Yeah. And that went on into February, and I realised, here we are again, we're on the same treadmill. And that one night in particular, for no reason at all, it was a Sunday night, the roast dinner was cooked, and my ex was at the table, he was cooking the dinner, I could smell the gorgeous garlic potatoes, and this was the way my brain was trained. I heard the pop, I heard the gluck, 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 and I sat at the table, the glass was pushed towards me, and I just very gently and very quietly pushed it across the table and said, no, not tonight, thanks.
Right.
That became, in retrospect, the bravest thing I ever did.
Yeah. One tiny
Tiny.
moment.
I didn't realise that was going to be the last time. Like the night before was the last time I was drinking. I didn't because I'm an English teacher as well, so I love symbolism. Everything's dripping in symbol. The mad thing about this symbolism was it was the day after Groundhog Day, which is interesting.
Yes,
I've written about that.
That's really interesting.
I didn't realise it at the time.
Yeah.
But I do things like I'm giving up booze tonight because it's like the anniversary of my father, or I'm giving up booze tonight because it's my 40th birthday, or whatever. There's always something dramatic. But this one gentle push was brave, and it was brave because, first of all, I was showing up for myself for the first time properly. I was at the dinner table. I could have just as easily as I had done a million times before said, sure, I'll just have one tonight, and then it would lead to another, and then I'd be chain smoking out the back, and the usual story, dragging myself through the Monday feeling like death. And it was the first time that I had the bravery and the integrity to say no, and not even be swayed by, sure, you may as well have the one with the dinner.
Yeah.
And that it changed my life.
Yeah.
And I haven't looked back since.
And how long ago was that?
That was 6 years in February.
6 years in February.
So it's now May, isn't it?
Yeah.
So 6 and a bit years.
Yeah, because I'm the same. It's my 6-year anniversary of giving up alcohol as well. But I did do dry January.
Yeah.
And because the way my brain was working, I was like, I can't say that I'm never going to have a drink again.
Yeah.
That's too much pressure.
Yeah, that's
so
a lot.
I did dry January, and then I was just like, I'll just see how long I can keep it going for. And the more I did it, the better I felt.
Yeah.
It was in combination with the meditation I'd started, and I was like, why would I put myself back
This
now
is it.
to feeling anxious, like that hungover feeling, the existential dread, and I was like, why would I do it? And it was hard for the people around me. And that's a big factor,
That's
isn't
the
it?
thing.
Because I was, if you watch Friends, Fun Bobby.
Yeah.
So it's like, Mary's
The boyfriend.
coming. Yeah, Mary's coming. There'll be a drink.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah, and like I couldn't have one, so it's like, well, I'd
Guilty
come
as charged too.
come back from the bar with the shots. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
have tequila. Yeah.
She's bought another bottle of wine. What?
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Yeah, so I was we sound very similar in that
Yeah.
respect. It's very all or nothing kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it is, but it is hard to adjust for everybody else as well, isn't it? Not just yourself.
Yeah, it is. And that's why, for me, finding Soberistas online was great. Because it's an online community, it's behind a paywall, but it's, nominal what you pay for it.
Yeah.
And with that, I started to write again. I started to write, full stop. I had a master's in journalism and didn't write. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I stopped because of my limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
Because of that awful inner critic you mentioned. That says, well, which really, if you don't get published in the Guardian, what's the point? Like, do you know this nonsense?
Yeah. Why even start?
Yeah, why even start?
Yeah.
And look at the age of you. And
Yeah.
for God's sake, should that look full of cliches? So I started to blog, and I started to get responses to my blogs that helped me, but I also realised helped others. Wow, that power, that feeling, and the reciprocity of it. Amazing.
Yeah.
And as I say earlier, the cheerleading. So that was what really, cemented another part of my life that I had shut away.
Yeah.
Shut away and basically thrown away the key, to be honest.
But I think that's the sober community is great, and I think the thing is, I think you classed yourself as a grey area drinker, and I think that perhaps explain the difference between that and an alcoholic, because I think a lot of people are like, well, I'm not an alcoholic. I don't put whiskey on my cornflakes.
Exactly.
So, and that's how they justify it to themselves.
And that's what kept me stuck for years, Mary. First of all, that's what kept me unaware for years, to be honest with you. I drank like an Irish person,
Yeah.
In fact, I used to actively quote Shirley MacLaine in Postcards from the Edge, where she's having a bit of a meltdown and her daughter Meryl Streep goes, "Mom, you're an alcoholic," and she says, "I am not an alcoholic. I just drink like an Irish person." And I thought, this is awesome. That's
About
me.
Irish members of the in-laws, yeah. So
it's like I drank like a feminist.
Yeah.
I drank like a party girl. I could drink any man under the table in my day, that kind of thing. I drank like a traveller, an international. All of these identities I donned. Then I drank like a mummy.
Yeah, wine time.
Mummyhood was not going to take away my identity, baby.
Yeah.
Because my bottle was there.
Yeah.
But despite all of these identities and the binge drinking that went on, the binge drinking was binge drinking all the way from the age of 14, by the way.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, it didn't deteriorate.
No, I started at 13.
That's the thing. But the type of grey area drinking is where you kind of have a dodgy off switch. I think that's the best way to describe it.
You've just given me goosebumps, because that is exactly how I try and explain it. It's like I've got a switch in my head,
Yeah.
and once it's gone, it's gone.
And the thing is, it might not go tonight.
Yeah.
I might not be bombing rollies off the guys who are sitting busking on the street.
Dancing on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might not go AWOL from
Yeah.
this lovely social gathering and end up with new people, harassing them to sing Irish rebel songs. But I just might.
Yeah, there's always the potential. Yeah.
And it could be crack, or it could actually be very dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the dodgy off switch is something that I used to think it was just greed, and I know that I can moderate. But what is moderation? Only misery? Why would you be drinking if you're not drinking to get drunk? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It just didn't make sense to
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
It's, to be honest, Mary, it still doesn't.
No, well, I'm always like, how do people go and nurse one pint for 3 hours at the pub? And like, I envy those people. So
Yeah.
like, you obviously have got an off switch.
Yeah.
So
It's very, very straight. But the way my wiring is, and once I realised that, then I realised, there is such a thing as grey area drinking. I did see Lucy Rocker, who founded Soberistas, one morning. I was watching this morning with a hangover on my day off with the baby. This kind of, when I was working part-time. Feeling crap, nursing a hangover, and the baby in my arms. And suddenly I turn on the screen and, the ticker tape is, tackling middle-aged women, grey area drinking. I'm thinking, what's that? Nothing to do with me. And then the minute she spoke, I just resonated, and I thought, oh my God, she might as well be me.
yeah.
The professional woman, the high achiever, the pushy kind of like go-getter,
Yeah.
and mum, young mum.
Yeah.
And she tells the story of how she ended up, in hospital because of a binge one night. And I thought, well, that's so, the fact that she wasn't drinking every day, she wasn't drinking first thing in the morning. And I think now that I do now know that alcohol use disorder is a spectrum.
Yeah.
We need to be having these conversations.
Definitely.
Because we have so many people in that grey area who are stuck and don't even realise it. And we look at the media, we look at Sex and the City, the most recent one. One of the characters ended up being an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And they went down that road. I would love to see a representation of something in the media where giving up alcohol isn't because you are in some basement like Loudermilk or something on like going to AA, but giving up alcohol is an option that you take, and it's liberating and it's joyous, not something
choice.
I mean, look at even Bad Sisters, that was out on Apple a few years ago, and the main character, who's the evil narcissistic murderous character, was also sober.
Yeah.
It's like all the time I see it, it's like, come on, please.
Yeah.
Can we have somebody to represent us? Because it is either the only thing you get when you see the media and advertising is extremes. The idea of this normal drinker, which doesn't exist, in my opinion, and rock bottom alcoholic.
Yeah. And
So,
it is, I mean,
yeah.
that, like you say, it was a missed opportunity with, not Samantha.
It was
Miranda.
with Miranda.
Because she really was a grey area drinker.
She was.
Like, I've got a meeting, so just going to have a glass of wine. I'm at a christening or a funeral, I'll have a couple of... So it wasn't that alcoholism state, was it really?
This is the thing that really killed me with that plot, was because I am a real like sobriety queen. I love, I read all the quit lit, we call it, the literature that they write about giving up and stuff. They had Holly Whitaker's book Quit Like a Woman, which is amazing. If you haven't got it, get it.
Right,
it's brilliant. But she actually ordered on Amazon, and they gave it a name check. There's a POV shot of her looking at that book, and I was like, yes, the writers are on board. And then suddenly she went down that route.
Yeah.
Which is completely opposed to what Holly Whitaker talks about.
Yeah.
So it's just clearly like, just what's in the bestseller? Let's slap that in.
Yeah.
Lazy
And
writing.
then it misses a chance to help people,
Huge.
doesn't it? Because I think that because people can say, I'm not an alcoholic like that, I don't need to go to an AA meeting, that justifies them carrying on when they could actually give up quite easily, really.
I think my question, I'd always say to people, ask yourself this question: does this add value to my life? End of. That's it. Now, you'll lie to yourself for about 5 years and say, yeah, it does. Look, I'm partying. It's great.
Yeah.
But eventually you'll come to a stage of going, actually, this doesn't add value. Like, does this vaping add value to my life? Do smoking cigarettes add value? You know, you start, that's the beginning of the process.
Yeah.
That's only the precognition stage, obviously. But once you start to ask that question, then you realise you have choice.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the power lies.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I always say, there's a famous quote, I can't remember who said it, it said that alcohol is basically robbing joy from tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because you know you're going to feel rubbish, you're going to waste a day, time's precious, so you're really going to waste that whole day in bed when you could have be doing something else with it. Yeah.
Because you're always just chasing that first 20-minute buzz. When you know the neuroscience of it, you're reading it going, what the hell? Seriously? I've been hoodwinked.
Yeah.
The best book that I read, actually, that really changed my mind completely on that was a book by Annie Grace called This Naked Mind. And that's what introduced me to the whole neuroscience of habit change and addiction.
Yeah.
And she made a very, very strong argument, you know, for why we do what we're doing, and to say you can take back the control.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that if anybody is interested.
I've read The Molecule of More.
Oh, yes.
As well, which is similar about the dopamine hit, because I class myself as addictive generally.
Yeah.
So it's like anything I do. But so even my wellness,
funnily enough,
became addictive. So
speaking my language,
you know, meditation, whatever it is, it's very addictive.
Yeah.
And we were saying this morning that even I've already joined TikTok because I knew I'd be addicted to that. So, but once you know that in yourself, it makes it a lot easier.
It does.
To
it's
work
funny, isn't it? It's like the whole like, I can't just go running. I have to do a marathon. Do you know? It's you have to take it that step further.
Yeah.
I can't just be interested in having a little group in school. I have to do a masters and then give up everything and start a new business.
Yeah, but it obviously makes you very driven.
Oh yeah.
And achieve some certain goals as well, doesn't it? On the positive side.
Unless you're going down the more destructive route, because that's it. I think that kind of personality type. You can go, it's very difficult to kind of, I suppose, carve a middle ground. You can be very destructive or very creative.
Yeah.
So it's channeling it in that area, isn't it? Towards the creativity and the building part, as opposed to the tearing down and destructive part.
Yeah. Which is back to identifying those positive characteristics and
that's
fostering
the thing,
them, isn't it?
That's the thing. And when you know what your signature strengths are, then you know that you can be true to yourself. So we talk about rewiring our brain with affirmations. I do that, and lots of people groan. You know, it's a mindfulness, people groan, affirmation people groan. So I teach the neuroscience first, and then I teach the character strengths, so that then it can become, rather than I am gorgeous when I look in the mirror, and then your brain's going, oh, shut up, I don't believe you. You start to go with your character. I'm actually really creative, or I'm really curious, and I'm going to use my curiosity today.
Yeah.
I'm brave. Bravery is my top strength. Honesty is my top strength. You see, so you're working through whatever your top strengths are, and you can create your own affirmations that are true.
Yeah.
And evidence-based as well.
That's the thing, isn't it? Not just faking it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny about the affirmations, because I was listening to a Buddhist podcast, and he was saying about how we're kind of kidding ourselves with affirmations and going, everything's brilliant. My life is brilliant. And I think that comes back to what you're saying there about actually making them authentic, so that they are actually believable.
Well, this is the thing, that's toxic positivity, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm loath to say positive. I mean, I keep playing around with my title. I've pulled positive out of it a few times. And when I speak to people about positive psychology, you can see, you know, the eyes roll and there's an internal groan almost. You can almost hear it. Because like, is that going to be like, I've got to be all positive? No, it's not at all, actually. It's quite the opposite. You're going to have to start leaning into the crap. You're going to have to start facing a few truths, love.
Yeah.
But that toxic positivity, and because Instagram and TikTok, you know, if depending who you surround yourself with and the content you surround yourself with, that can be very, very dangerous. Because, you know, and they call it spiritual bypassing as well, don't they?
Yes.
It's like, all is well, there's nothing to see. I have, you know, my beliefs, the universe has my back. And I do believe in the universe.
Yeah.
But we've got to talk about the action part of it as well.
Absolutely, because that is my tagline is well-being without the wankiness.
Oh, I love that.
And that is exactly that
Yes.
Instagram thing
Oh.
of everyone pretending everything's
Yeah.
great, floating around in white.
Yes.
And going, isn't life wonderful? And you're like, behind them is a
Yeah.
whole heap of crap.
Yeah.
They
And they
probably just
did-
yelled at the kids.
Cameras off and they're screaming their head off.
Yeah.
Where's
Just
me
road
wine?
raged
Where's
in
me
the
wine?
car. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is so, and I do say that, if I'm doing an event with adults, I'll say, look, it may sound wanky, but I'll use
Yeah.
that myself.
Yeah.
Because it is, and I think, is it optimal psychology I do? It is. It's enabling you to optimize who you are, optimize your strengths, and optimize your strengths on every level. If you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I start at the bottom when I work with clients. Physical is essential. So I will not do a program unless I have incorporated physical exercise into it.
Yeah.
I'll always say 20 minutes outside for the circadian rhythm, getting some light, getting some vitamin D. But that's always one of my pillars.
Right.
And then the next one, I look at it like this. I look the 3 P's, I call it. P, bottom P is your physical. That's your nourishment, your sleep, drinking, water, exercise. The middle P is people, because hell is other people.
Yes,
we know that.
yes.
So it's working on how you engage, dropping the rope if you have to. That's a really good phrase, to drop the rope.
Yeah.
So you're not tugging, you're not on this constant treadmill of fighting and standing up for yourself or defending yourself.
Yeah.
That's a really important thing to think about. And the top one's the psychology. So you cannot just talk about psychology without the other 2 pillars, or the 3 rungs of the pyramid.
And that's really interesting, because I probably neglect my physical
Right.
health
Okay.
out of everything. I am better with water.
Yeah.
My sleep's good, but in terms of exercise, that's probably my missing component, I think.
Well, why don't you do the challenge that I'm currently doing? And all I want you to do, I'll tell you more about it later, but all I want you to do now is do 20 minutes outside every single day. That's it.
Right.
And that can be a walk.
Yeah.
And you can do, I've invented a form of exercise. I've invented, by the way. I call it rancing.
Rancing?
It's run dancing.
Oh, I like that, because I listen to my music and I'm like this. I
That's
strut.
it.
My wife's like,
You're a rancer, baby.
yeah, oh, right. I love that. I've got a name for it
You
now.
got it, yeah. So rancing is essentially putting on your music, going somewhere quiet, preferably, because I live near Sefton Park, so I go somewhere like, it sounds a bit dodgy, this, in the bushes, away from people's prying eyes, and like Chemical Brothers or something banging in my ears, and then I'm running, and then I start to dance. And then if anyone sees me, I start to do some kind of like pretend exercises, and then they go, and then I carry on with the dancing.
Right.
That is such a mood uplifter.
Right, I'm going to commit to that. This is on
Transformational.
camera.
There you go.
So I've got to do it now. I'm committing to that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, so I'm going to make you accountable. I'm going to text you and make sure you're doing this.
No. But I do like the accountability, because I've been through a soul coaching program where I had to send my journal every morning.
Oh.
And how much water I drank.
Wow.
And everything, and I need it. I'm like, that's the other side of my brain structure.
You're like me. Because that's why I do these challenges.
Yeah.
All I do, if you follow me on LinkedIn or on Instagram, all I'm doing is, hey guys, it's spring, it's time. It's my stopaholicism.
Yeah.
Because it's like every new month is a new start. That's why I called the business Rise. That's why the program's called Rise. That's why my handle is Sunrise Sobriety. Because I believe that, every day is a fresh start.
Yeah.
And my challenges every month or every week or whenever you start is a fresh start to just start, show up for yourself. Begin. My little mantra is this: it's believing plus beginning equals becoming. Isn't that good? The
I
three
love
B's.
that.
I know.
love that.
I've written that on my bathroom wall.
I might have to get that as a tattoo.
Oh,
I think, yeah.
When I tell the kids that one, I have it usually at the end of all of my little presentations, because that's
Yeah.
what I believe. And it comes from I think it's like I think it's a Goethe quote that's something like, when you want to do something, beginning is the most bold step. I can't remember the quote directly, but it's something that I loved. And I was looking at it one day and I was thinking, because the cognitive stuff starts first, but you can't do anything without starting. And I put beginning as opposed to action, taking action, because sometimes if you start something and then you let go, you can just do the whole kind of like the car gets a flat tire, you get out with a sledgehammer and smash the whole car up. You know, when it's like that metaphor, isn't it?
Yeah.
I started meditation, did it 3 times, didn't work, can't be bothered.
Yeah.
So the beginning bit is also a reminder that it's it's the present mindfulness thing. It's
and begin again. You
begin
can begin again.
And begin again. There's always the next moment.
Yeah.
There's always the next chance for you to show up for yourself, and then you become.
Yeah.
Because that's the James Clear Atomic Habits and BJ Fogg's,
Yeah.
Tiny Habits. But that's the concept of, by doing the work, you become who you say you are.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a non-drinker. Wow. 10 years ago, people would have laughed in my face if I said that. I'd have laughed in my face.
Me too, yeah, absolutely. It's that having that identity, as we said before, of, well, I'm a drinker, so that, I'm stuck with that.
I'm a feminist.
Now.
I'm badass. Yeah.
Yeah.
I drink because I'm a
drink
rebel.
pints.
Yeah. I'm sober because I'm a rebel.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, and it is a rebellious act. I
Hugely countercultural.
Yeah. So I don't think I need to ask you whether you've got bravery as you've got older, because I think you clearly have.
Yeah, I think I was quite brave as a child because I was like raised half of my life, so my accent's quite hybrid. I went from London in the 80s to the west of Ireland, the middle of nowhere, on top of a hill,
Right.
3 miles from the nearest village. But it was also a real Republican stronghold.
Yeah.
So I was dropped in there
What
as a
age was
Cockney
that?
little girl at the age of 10.
At the-
11.
So, oh, wow.
Yeah.
A real formative age.
Yeah, it was a toughie. And I had to really adapt quickly. But I didn't lose my Cockney accent for a long time. And I think that was an act of rebellion, actually.
Yeah, you're not going
That
to
was
change my accent.
very brave.
Yeah. Well, it would have been, yeah.
Very brave.
At that time.
When you hear my sister and my brother speak, they're very strong Limerick accents.
Mm.
But I didn't realise it was a conscious thing.
No.
But it must have been. I was very, very outspoken.
Yeah.
But it was hard. I was very severely bullied.
Yeah.
Because people would call me the Brit, and
Well, it makes you different. You're singled out. straight away,
so
aren't you?
and also I was very confused because I'd come from an Irish community in North London where everybody I knew was Irish because my parents surrounded themselves. There's Camden and there's Kilburn, and where we lived there's the Catholic Church, and it was a real Irish community there.
Yeah.
I'd wear green ribbons in my hair for St. Patrick's Day, and then to come to this and be othered, really active, very, strongly othered. So I think there was a lot of bravery there, and from there it kind of spurred me on to be the first in my family to go to uni,
Yeah.
to push myself, not even knowing where I was going, what I was doing, really. I ended up falling into English because I kind of like English.
Yeah.
Do you know, that
Yeah.
kind of way?
Yeah.
No guidance, because obviously mum and dad they did the best they could to get me there and
Yeah.
support me, but so that took a lot of bravery. And then to travel, I did travel a lot when I was a student. I worked in America, and I went off by myself and went to the Middle East as a teacher. That's why I ended up teaching, actually, to travel.
Yeah.
And it just took me all over the world, and then I gave up teaching for a while and lived in a tent and picked fruit in the Okanagan Valley in Canada.
Right.
Do you know, so I don't know if that's bravery or being foolhardy.
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's more perhaps the impetuousness of youth, or going back to the believing that you could do whatever you wanted and doing it.
Yeah. I think what was quite interesting was maybe because I had come from 2 completely conflicting spaces. Now that I work it out in my head, I think it's knowing that you can look at things objectively and take a step back.
Mm.
Knowing that at the age of, I didn't know that obviously at the age of 11, I wasn't a child prodigy or anything, but just, retrospectively, I think that gave me a lot of confidence because I didn't just grow up and come from there.
No,
I'd seen other things.
Learn to hold your own.
Yeah, I had to. Yeah. So, but definitely, I think I lost my bravery along the way. So that brave young woman, as the years went by, I think that 30 period, that decade, that was shit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I mean, great. I did have my son. I mean, that was great. That was a highlight. There were some highlights.
Yeah.
But on the whole, that 10 year was, that was hard going.
Yeah.
And I think that's when the bravery, that was just being tenacious. That was what we would say surviving, not thriving.
Yeah. It was just getting up and
Yeah.
getting through the motions
Yeah.
of surviving the day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's hard. So I think the bravery that it came when I stopped drinking again. I refound it.
Yeah, because I think that it gives you a feeling of invincibility in some ways. You go, well, if I can do that, the thing that I thought was impossible, and would never happen, then I can do anything.
Yeah, they call it post-traumatic growth in positive psychology.
Right.
I remember when I came upon that theory, and it was like, everything lit up. That one, and another theory, you're going to love this one, and you probably know it anyway. It's the broaden and build theory. Have you ever heard of that theory? This is pure bliss.
Yeah.
So basically, it's pioneered by a woman called Barbara Fredrickson, and the broaden and build theory. They've done loads and loads and loads of research into positive emotions, and what they found is the more you actively seek out positive emotions, the more you include things that will enable you to be positive in your life, the more open-minded you become, the more you're going to take risks in life, the more you're going to be expansive in your life. And the more you do that and succeed, the more the feedback comes back to enable you to do more and more and more. And she calls it the upward spiral.
I was going to say upward spiral. I definitely say that a lot.
Yeah.
Because we hear all too often about a downward spiral.
Yeah.
But it's just as easy to get into an upward spiral if you put the effort in, isn't it?
And that's it. That's the upward spiral of flourishing.
Yeah.
That's the theory, the broaden and build theory. And again, when I saw that, I was like, yes, this is it. Because the more, and I do believe it. That's why I say, incrementally put in things to your life. They're not always going to come naturally.
No.
You stop waiting for things to happen. Start making them bleed and happen.
Yeah, give it a go. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's those small changes, I think, that get overlooked. And again, we come back to social media on this.
Yeah.
It's this life hack. I'll change your life in 10 seconds, or do this for a week and your life will be different. And I think that, again, it's just so missing the point of what it takes to actually climb out and get into that upward spiral.
Yeah, because, do you know what? It's kind of boring to start with. Yeah? It's repetitive. Because as I said, what's it? Carrying wood, chopping wood, carrying water.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And your brain doesn't necessarily like it, because, our brain wants to go towards pleasure and away from pain.
Yeah.
Away from discomfort and into comfort. It's uncomfortable. You've got to sit with yourself when you're not drinking your wine on Friday night when Graham Norton's on. I switched off Graham Norton. I'm literally...
Is that an association?
Hugely. I had to just stop him. I had to stop a lot of things. That was one that I just went, no.
Yeah.
I don't mess with Graham Norton. I know where that leads itself to. But that's the thing. It's so knowing that as well, that those micro moments, like I said, the brave moment of just pushing away that glass, you don't know at the time that this is going to be hugely significant in your life, perhaps. And I think it's probably as well that you don't know what's coming down the line. And I think it's as well that you don't, but to accept. I think acceptance is the key. Understanding that it's not, just because you put down the glass doesn't mean you suddenly get a master's in positive psychology and set up a business.
No.
This is over the span of 6 years.
Yeah, with a lot of highs and lows.
A lot.
In between.
Yeah. And still,
Yeah.
plenty.
Yeah. Moving on to laughter then.
Oh.
So how important is laughter in your life? I'm guessing a
come
lot.
on. I'm Irish.
Yeah.
We even have a word for it, crack.
Yeah. I was going to specify actually earlier when you said crack, you meant Irish crack.
Oh yes. Oh
not,
God.
Not crack.
I say crack. I did.
You said,
at the beginning.
is it the crack? Or I was like, it's not crack. It's Irish crack. CRAIC. Yeah.
Yes. Let's get the spelling right.
Clarify that.
Yeah. Crack is mighty. And I think it's got me through loads. I mean, obviously, the whole gallows humour and being able to navigate certain challenges in our lives. My granddad used to be known as a gay old man, and gay and that, Jesus, Tom Vaughan, he's a gay man.
Yeah.
He's a gay man. Mischief is the key, I think. Mischief and divilment. We call it divilment in Ireland.
Twinkle in the eye.
I love it.
Yeah.
My mum, I get it from my mother, and she's a chancer, and she cracks me up, and she now has Alzheimer's. But you know what, Mary? The key thing is, I love the fact that we can still connect with her, with the laughter.
Ah,
Do you know?
See, that's still a root.
The laughter and the music, So when she comes to visit me, I'll have Johnny McAvoy on the Alexa in the background, and she'll say, "Oh, we're having a great day here today. He's playing great songs today." I'll say, "Come on, Josie, get up and dance." And she'll get up and dance around, and we'll laugh.
Yeah.
And it's when my dad died from Alzheimer's as well, sadly.
Right.
But I used to think it was quite funny because in our house, the kids, because my nieces and nephews and my own children, it was very much like, okay, so this is just us living with it now. So they'd be playing, teddies. The teddies would be on the hoist going up and down. And Mum got a phone call and somebody, one of the neighbours who'd driven by the house said, "Is there something wrong with one of your grandchildren? I saw him wheeling around in a wheelchair." And I used to play with the wheelchair, Dad's wheelchair. So laughter, always looking at the funny side of things is very big. I love I love people like Adam Buxton and like Matt Berry, like kind of irreverent, surrealist stuff. I used to love the Mighty Boosh. And
oh yeah,
the kids,
so on the absurd.
Crazy kind of the Moon. I love the Moon. What I loved about the Mighty Boosh was I could connect with my son when he was little.
Yeah.
And we would watch that. And he went into nursery school one day, and the moon was out. It was early, like probably November or something. And he said to the nursery guy, he went, "Oh, Matt, the moon from the Mighty Boosh." Matt was like, "Wow, this child is quoting the Mighty Boosh."
This is the coolest kid.
Now he would tell me now that he hates that humour.
Right.
But that's probably because he's going against his mother.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's a wonderful way that I connect with the kids. We send each other memes all the time. We all have in-jokes about various things, which they sometimes blurt out in the wrong places or with the wrong people. But for me, it's really important. My friends are funny. I just love having a good laugh, a good belly laugh.
Yeah.
They've done studies. I love this. They've done studies where they've shown there's a really funny cat video that me and my daughter love. It's just very funny.
Love a cat video. Yeah.
But they show funny cat videos with this one control group, and the other one they show the news. Surprise, surprise, and they send them off to do tasks. Yeah. So and really test them, like follow instructions and give them some serious cognitive work to do, and obviously the ones who've just come out of the cat video session do way better. Yeah, they perform much better. Isn't that mad?
Yeah,
you think about it.
Your brain's flooded with all the best endorphins and oxytocin and all that. So,
and that's your broaden and build again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I say to students or clients when I work with stress, you like that, you become constricted.
Yeah, and you daren't laugh, or you can't laugh.
And then when you're like that, you're just producing cortisol and adrenaline and noradrenaline. I can even feel it in my throat.
Yeah.
But the laughter loosens you. And I just could not imagine a life without laughter. I couldn't. And I seek it out. I actively seek it out.
Yeah.
I find things that make me laugh. I find memes that make me laugh. My friends send me memes on Instagram. I send them memes on Instagram. And I often just belly laugh in public places where people are just like, what? And I love, do you know what I love? I love meeting people who I spark with as well. Yeah. Like you're like one of those people. We'd have a laugh. And I just think that's such a gift as well.
Yeah, I love that.
I call it an instant get-on factor.
Yeah.
But I think instant get-on factor, the main component of that is laughter, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely always the way to. I think you've hit the nail on the head with the connection.
Yeah.
That whoever it is, whether it's like you say with someone elderly, someone young, someone new that you've met, it's always humour that is a route to connection, isn't it?
And I think there's something that makes it's humbling, isn't it? Because you can, and there's the authentic self coming to the fore there. It's that if you're being authentic, then your guard is down to a degree, more so, and then you allow yourself to be vulnerable. Yeah, laughter's you're vulnerable when you're laughing.
Yeah, because you're totally
even when you look at your body language. Yeah, and it's so powerful, so powerful. Yeah, me and the kids, we bonded over The Office during lockdown. That's what we used to watch all the way through lockdown. So now we just watch The Office random episodes of the American Office.
American,
as well.
I was going to say American, English, yeah.
The English one we love too, but my daughter was a bit too young for that. But the American one was kind of a little bit more sanitized, isn't it? Yeah. Less cynical.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? And I think it is great to have that connection. And it's like the memes. I know we there's a lot bad about the internet and social media, but you've got to give it up for the memes, especially when they're, when something happens.
Yeah.
Like I rush to Twitter, like when I'm watching a program that's something and I'm like, oh,
Here
the
we go.
memes are just gold, and it is, and you can send them. Like I send them to my daughter. She sends me random frog ones. Like some of hers are very weird, and she just goes, literally me. That's her
Love
saying,
it.
Literally me, and I'm like, okay, I know where your head's at now.
I love that. That's so good though, isn't it? Because it's also shorthand for quite a depth of emotion at times, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it, as you say, I know where your head's at now. It tells a lot. It tells a lot what you laugh at as well, what you're into. And again, I can be a bit sniffy.
Well, it's a good way of sort of sifting people out that you're not going to get on with, isn't it? Sometimes like I test the water sometimes with things, and I go, oh no, you're not quite the person I thought it was. We haven't had the same experiences, so I'm just gonna
okie dokes,
pull
bye.
that from
So
that.
I do the laughter one is key, and that's when I think about my best friends. They're the ones who make me laugh. Really, the loudest, and it's also what I love about laughter is it's just so clever. It's just so intelligent, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah,
and I do appreciate that, and I appreciate what you were saying today. You were talking about puns and wordplay.
Yeah, wordplay. Yeah,
love language.
Yeah,
so if I'm getting any of that, then it's like yes.
That's the. It's like it just fires a completely different part of my brain. It's not for everyone.
No,
but I do like clever humour.
Yeah,
and like I was saying about Victoria Wood, I used to love how she'd tell seemingly separate jokes or stories, and then all at the end it just go tie it up in a bow, and there's your
beautiful.
Big point, and it's like,
it's
genius,
an art form.
The genius. Yeah.
So and I like funny novels. I read actually the Booker Prize winner. This is weird. My ex got it for me for Christmas. Hasn't bought me a present in like 20 years, but anyway, bought me this for Christmas. And the Booker Prize winner, Irish guy, Paul Lynch, and it's called The Prophet. Prophet Song. Oh my God, it broke my heart. It was awful.
Yeah.
It was a dystopic novel, and it was set in Ireland at a time of war and division, and it was just too close to what's going on in general in the world to be fiction. But I remember at the end, I read it at the beginning of the year, and I said, I'm not reading anything that doesn't lift me. Yeah. So I've got a little book club called the Badass Book Club.
Right.
And every month I pick something like Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
This month it's Indistractable by Nir Eyal.
Brilliant.
Yes, brilliant for students actually studying. I put that onto my list because a lot of my students do the book club. But the books I've said I'm going to read from here on in will not affect me deeply in a way that depress me. I'm going to look for funny things. Marion Keyes, for instance. Yeah. I used to be a snob about her. Yeah. As a literary person, I'd be like, I don't know, that's chicklit. Rubbish.
Yeah.
And then I read it 20 years later, and I was like, oh Jesus, she's actually very good. Oh no.
Because I think it's hard to write funny.
It's
to write
really
funny
hard.
As in for a book.
Yeah.
Because there's so much in comedy generally is about your tone, your delivery. So I think it's a real art form to write funny.
And she does pack a punch in her books. Like I devoured them voraciously once I started reading and realised, oh, she is for me. Yeah. Oh, I take it all back, Marion. Sorry, I've slagged you off for 20 years, mate.
I'll make up for it now.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I think it might be jealousy on my part. Oh.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. But yeah, I do. I love a good uplifting read and good uplifting watch. And if I do feel low, I will find something. I'll do a bit of ranting to my music, but I'll also find something, and I say this to clients all the time, find something that lights you up and makes you laugh. Yeah. And just have it as your go-to, as your touchstone. Yeah. And go home, sit down and watch an episode of Friends. A lot of teenagers
Friends is my real. That
and
is
it
my...
is.
Yeah.
It's so comfortable, isn't it?
Yeah, I must have watched it thousands of times, and now my daughter's into it as well.
I love it when they get to that age.
And I'll come in and I'll go, oh, this
them.
episode's brilliant. She says, you say that about every episode. I was like, yeah, but this is like Ross's physical humour is just brilliant.
Oh, I mean, it is on so many levels. And I love good writing. I mean, I love Succession. Have you seen Succession?
God,
it's hilarious.
Yeah, so funny. Yeah, I've just rewatched all of Succession back to back. It made a lot more sense actually when you when you binge watch it together. Yeah,
it's so amazing. So Succession, I love because Peep Show was written by the same guy.
Yeah.
So my son has found Peep Show, so we have lots of in jokes about the characters in Peep Show. I'll say things to him, like the turkey. There's the one where he tells him he hasn't bought a turkey, and then he goes off completely crazy, and he goes, "Of course I have." But there's this ongoing joke when I tell him I haven't cooked the dinner.
Yeah,
he falls for it every single time.
I love an in joke as well, especially in the family.
It's good, isn't it?
It's really bonded, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because it's hard when you've teenage kids, isn't it? It's sometimes really hard to reach them.
Yeah. And they do go away from you, don't they, for a period?
They have to.
And they have to, yeah. But that I've found the humour as the one link that we can keep.
And it's one I kept with my own dad, and my own mum when I left home and when I was growing up even. I do remember one of my earliest books was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And to this day, and I remember coming across that when I was quite young, and I liked it because it had a neon pink front cover. And it was in Woolworths or somewhere, so I think I must have bought it in London, so it would have been years and years ago. But that was so witty. Douglas Adams' writing is so witty, and that was what really kind of intrigues me about that. But yeah, laughter is huge.
Love that. Moving on to inspiration then. You've already told me a lot about the things that have inspired you, so is there some people in your life that have inspired you as well?
Yeah, well, I have people in real life and then people, that I aspire to be like and who inspire me. But I think my mum and my dad, who both had to leave school before they got secondary education. My dad went and worked on the ships. He was a sailor like his father before him and his brothers for a good while before he moved to London. And my mother was sent away in Imshire, they say in Irish, which means in service.
Right.
And she basically had to raise the children for her auntie, who had a succession of like loads and loads of little children. Bearing in mind it was the days when they didn't have washing machines, they didn't have much space. It was a pub, they lived on the top of a pub. And she worked really, really hard until her sister, who was the one who did get to go to secondary school, her older sister, came back from London and scooped her away and took her over there. But she's had a tough life, my mum, she's had a really tough life, and you wouldn't see it, to anyone who knows her before the Alzheimer's, but even with the Alzheimer's would say she's always been very joyous, very funny, very, very optimistic. And I think as a child that was great. As a teenager I did recoil from that a bit. I went through a bit of a cynical dark phase.
Stop being so positive.
Jesus. I remember slagging off one of my friends who rocked up when we were in uni with The Road Less Travelled. Do you remember that book?
Yeah.
And we were like, this is pathetic, and now I quote from it.
Yeah, that's one of my favourite rock posts as well.
But I did, I did find she like, I think I'm lucky in that. And I know that some of our optimism, actually about 49%, I mean, the jury's still out on that. But there's been studies, there's a woman called Sonia Lieber-Mirsky. She's done a lot of study into, do we inherit optimism? And she found that roughly 49% is inherited. Of, whether we look at things in a pessimistic way or an optimistic way. And the rest you can build on. Yeah, so that means you've got 50% control of your happiness, which is amazing, isn't it?
That's good odds.
But I think for me, I do have that, whatever it is, that optimistic gene. I'll always look for the glass full, overflowing most of the time if I'm talking about booze. But yeah, so mum for sure. I found desperate to find somebody to help me with the Artist's Way about 10 years ago. I found Helen Collins, who I mentioned earlier, who also became a counsellor. Because she's a trained psychotherapist, but also an Artist's Way facilitator. So she got me into the morning pages and made me aware of internal family systems and the fact that you can parent yourself and that sometimes your inner toddler comes out, and made me very, very aware of the inner critic. So I did a lot of inner child work with her, and she still proves to be a wonderful inspiration to me to this day. And we meet once a month for the Artist's Way Collective. There's a bunch of us who still meet and have done for years. And that was a lifeline to me when I stopped drinking and I left the relationship that I was in 4 years ago. That was really, really helpful. So she's an inspiration. Lucy Rocker, I've mentioned before, who founded Soberistas. I just can't talk about sobriety without talking about that woman, because it's this quiet, dignified, you know, she's not loud. You probably don't know of her. Most people hear about sober heroes, and there's a few people in the media who they'll say, oh, such and such and such and such. But Lucy Rocker's been there for years in the background, just building that wonderful online community that has 80,000 followers. Nobody, you know, she doesn't really bang a drum.
Yeah.
And I think she should be made a dame. She's
Yeah,
amazing,
yeah.
you know. So she's definitely an inspiration, because she, you know, when I said believing plus beginning equals becoming.
Yeah.
At the beginning of that believing stage, I have to share with people that sometimes you don't have that believing, you don't have that belief in yourself. You have to borrow somebody else's belief. And I very much borrowed Lucy's belief.
Yeah.
And the belief of the Soberista people who were ahead of me. So that my sober community, my sober friends, they're an inspiration to me. And my kids, they inspire me every day to try. I hate using that word, to be a better person.
Well, I think something you've touched on there is the tribe element. So your Artist Way tribe, your sober tribe, and I think that's really important, isn't it?
Well spotted. And do you know what I did my dissertation on? Social connection. And it was actually about Soberistas.
Yeah.
What I used was Barbara Fredrickson's model of flourishing for the broaden and build theory. It was a qualitative analysis. So I interviewed lots and lots of people in the community, you know, and anonymously they came, they weren't all my mates, like, and the overarching finding was that being sober, leads to flourishing, but the connection is essential. And Johan Hari, I don't know if you've ever read Lost Connections. It's brilliant. He's great. He's done a lot of stuff on stolen focus as well.
Oh, Stolen Focus I've read.
He's great.
That was a life-changing book, actually.
But his takeaway from when he did research into tribes and social connection was the opposite to addiction is connection.
Yes, that is spot on.
So, and that's where I think public speaking, what we do in the podcasting world, what you do on stage, what I do on stage, what we do in workshops, speaking out, it gives a voice, gives our voice space, but it gives people space to realise what their own voice is and to connect.
Yeah, because there is a lot of isolation, and it's a very difficult challenge to become sober in isolation. And that's, you know, we've got an epidemic of loneliness, haven't we?
We have.
Even with people who are within family units, would say they're lonely. So that connection is vital. Yeah, and because there's so much fragmentation, isn't there? You know, the kids are going to their rooms to watch their own content. We're downstairs watching something else. Granddad's somewhere else watching or listening to something else. And it's really, it's making sure, that's why I love The Office, for the connection, and for the humour, because I know that the 12-year-old, the 18-year-old and me will all watch that and enjoy it equally. Yeah. So it is so significant to have that connection. And I don't know, you probably know the stat, it's like smoking 15 fags a day. Yeah. It's the same on your loneliness,
health. Loneliness. Yeah. That's terrible, isn't it? I mean, that's wrong.
But it's not seen, it's not widely known, is it? No. I mean, we've said about the Unstressable book, and Mo said, we think COVID was the biggest pandemic we've ever had. And it's actually stress. And we're just blindly wandering around thinking it's normal to live in stress. Normal, and normal to feel lonely, normal to feel isolated.
But a badge of honour, Mary. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Do you know what I did when I was leaving? Now I know now what it's called. There's a term for it. It's called quiet quitting. I don't know.
Yes, I've heard of that, yeah.
But I used to, just as an experiment, because again, the old research thing, I just started to observe everybody rushing in the place where I was working. And I just threw a complete spanner in the works. I got great joy walking slowly in corridors. It wound everyone up, especially management. Yeah. Because if you're seen to be walking slowly, you don't look busy. You don't look purposeful, productive. Yeah. I saw that as an ultimate act of rebellion, which I now know is a term that post-COVID, you know, with the great resignation and everything. But it's because I was just so sick and tired of seeing people sick and tired because of the busyness and the noise. That's some of it's optional.
Yeah.
Some of it's optional.
And I think a lot of people could do their job probably in 4 hours a day.
We know that since COVID,
You know,
don't we?
yeah.
We found that out. We also found that out in homeschooling a little bit as well, didn't we?
Yeah. And a lot of it is
Yeah.
just filling time.
Yeah.
So I remember being, I think it was a council building, and I was going for a meeting, and I sat, must have been early, and everyone had a piece of paper in their hand.
Yeah.
And I thought that you're just carrying that piece of paper, so that if anyone stops you, it looks like you're busy, and you've probably like just been for 20-minute break in the toilet, or you've been for your fag break, but you're carrying a piece of paper. Therefore, you must be doing something.
You look
and
so busy.
Yeah, it really amused me at the time.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think, you know, be honest with yourself, because when you start to strip things away, like COVID for me, I knew what I'm very good at nodding my head in official situations with officious people who say you must do this, this and this, and going, yeah, grand, and then walking away and going, yeah, that's not going to happen, mate. And then just doing my own thing. In fact, I met an NQT teacher this very morning, and that was the advice I imparted. I said, just nod your head, say nothing, just nod your head, carry on, do your own thing then.
Yeah.
And she went, great, thanks.
Best advice.
But isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if we say yes to everything, and especially in education, for me, you walk down that corridor and there's kids, blah, 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 miss, can I get, miss, there's teachers, did you get my email? Did you, blah, 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 and it's just constant.
Yeah.
And it's chaos from the minute you enter. And it's everybody else's chaos. But walking slowly, staying present, being aware, it freaks everyone out, man. I love it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? Even like not being on your phone, like in a queue, for example.
Yeah.
When we're at Lidl or Asda or whatever, and the default is, I'm a queue, so that means I've got 2 minutes with my own thoughts, or I'll get my phone out. So I like one of my purposeful things is not to get my phone out.
That's a
in
great
queues. But you can see people going, wow, she's just staring into space.
What's going on
there?
She's weird.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? You know that they've done a test. You know that test? Have you heard about this test? I love these things. They did a test you had an option. So you had a choice of sitting with your thoughts for 15 minutes or pressing a button that gave you an electric shock.
Heard about that? People chose the electric
shock. Most people. Come on, guys. What's going on with us that we can't sit with ourselves? That we'd rather electrocute ourselves than to actually sit. So, yeah, I think mindfulness is the backbone of everything when it comes to things like positive psychology and well-being, isn't it? But it's the way we're sold it. We become very standoffish and we don't really want to know about it because it becomes that woo-woo thing. Yeah. That wanky well-being that you were saying, doesn't it? So I think that kind of practical mindfulness is important. So being able to say, be aware of when you wash your hands. I like that. Yeah. Just being aware of, every now and then just taking something, centering yourself and feeling your feet on the ground. Like as I speak to you, I still have sand in my feet from my little swim earlier. But it's nice to remind me.
Touchstones, isn't it?
Yeah. But I don't know, how did we get onto that?
Well, we're talking about inspiration, so I think you've kind of seamlessly gone into how you want to inspire others, because you've inspired me in the last hour that we've been chatting.
Thank you. Well, it works both ways.
Yeah, but so can you sum up how you'd like to inspire others?
I would like to inspire people to, if they feel trapped, if they feel that they're living, as Threw would have said, lives of quiet desperation, to know that there's another way. To know that they've got control of their habits, that they've got control of their brain, to understand that, as human beings, we go towards pleasure, we go towards comfort and away from pain and discomfort. And to realise that it isn't necessarily how it should be and how it has to be, and that they have the power to take that back. And I especially want to reach out to anybody listening who might think that alcohol is adding no value to their lives now. Really ask yourself, is this substance? Maybe you've been having this substance since 14, 13. Maybe it's just part of who you are, or you think it is. Start to question yourself, is this adding value to my life? And if it isn't, really be honest. And then do some research and, you know, look at the sober tribe that's out there. Get on Instagram, get on, have a look at This Naked Mind by Any Grace, get on Soberistas, but realize that you do not have to be rock bottom before you take action, and that applies to everything in your life. Coercive relationships, unhappy marriages, bullying bosses, you know, the wrong purpose, wrong meaning, whatever you're doing in your career. You don't have to wait, because it's so much easier to wait for the toxic partner to have an affair. Yay, there you go. That's my mind made up.
Yeah.
Or to wait for the boss to fire you. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
Or to wait for somebody to have an intervention and say you're drinking too much. Nobody would have ever staged an intervention for me because I didn't drink like that.
No.
But it was problematic nonetheless.
Yeah, but no one was going to tell you that.
No, but because most of the people didn't really think that it was that bad either.
Well, not if they were all doing the same as well, because then that would involve shining a light on them, wouldn't it?
So just think to yourself and be honest. But I mean, if booze is your thing, then knock yourself out. You know, it's not a judgmental thing. But that's what I would love to do. I would love to be able to inspire people to realise that they have control of their own narrative, ultimately. They have got the power. They've got the power. They've always had the power. Like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
You've always had the
it all
power.
along. Yeah.
It's amazing when you know that, isn't it? Because then it changes your world, changes your worldview, and just it brings the authenticity into the piece, doesn't it?
Yeah. That's a very inspiring message.
Oh, thank you. But it's true.
Yeah. Spark then.
Ooh,
So there is a bit of crossover, I think, with inspiration and spark. So I'll get you to define it, but I see spark as like your daily spark, what gets you out of bed. So what gives you your spark? Because you seem, having met you today, you seem a very sparky person, I have to say.
Yeah. I do my best. No, so much gives me spark. When I think of spark, I think of my drinking days, to get back to that, and to get back to that lonely, dark place, like that decade in my 30s really was the darkest. And I think of it as, when I say it's not rock bottom, it was death by 1,000 cuts. And I see my life now as life by 1,000 sparks. Isn't that nice? And I wrote a little piece about this a few years ago, you know, and it was more with a candle flame, you know, by 1,000 flames, but it's 1,000 sparks. And I think to live a good life, to live a flourishing life, spark isn't just that one-off, you know, crazy experience at a gig, or that rush of love, you know, when you meet somebody you fall in love with, or, you know, the having a baby, you know, and holding that newborn in your arms. I mean, that's really special. They're special moments. But I think spark is incremental. Yeah. And it's intentional as well. Some of it is natural. Some of it you can just find by chance. But I think if you live a life, like you say, of structure, so I have a routine that I stick to, and it serves me. It supports my mental health. It supports my physical health. And as a result, I feel I'm more energized. But the real spark, I think, Mary, comes from being aligned. Yeah. That's where that spark comes from. Because when I'm actually at my best is when I am living in my character strengths, my top strengths. Yeah. You know, like love of learning, creativity, curiosity, they're ones for me. Gratitude is up there for me. Appreciation of beauty and excellence. Like I remember when I did the test and I got the results, I was like, yes, 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 yes. And then I got self-regulation at the bottom. And prudence. I was like, yeah, well, they're boring anyway. Right,
but that's spot on.
It's so on it, isn't it? Yeah. And I think, but the other thing that was actually quite low was zest, like energy. Yeah. And I remember saying and perseverance, I was raging over that, to be honest. I was like, well, come on, guys. Yeah. But I said it to the lecturer, and he said, no, Liz, what you've got to realise is your lower strengths are strengths.
They're still strengths.
They just they're not they're not expressed as loudly as creativity and curiosity and love of learning. And I thought, that's so clever. Yeah, that's so true as well.
Yeah, it's not saying you haven't got perseverance.
That's it. Yeah, we've all got, there's 24 character strengths that they've researched. And we've all got them. in varying degrees. But the top 5 are the ones that really, when you know you're on fire, when you are living your best life, you're hitting those 5. And that's very, very special, I think.
Yeah.
And it can be dancing, it can be going swimming with my friends in Liso Bay, and just, throwing yourself into the Irish Sea on a random Friday lunchtime. It can be, reading a book quietly by the fire.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It can be hanging out with the kids and having a laugh and sending each other memes. But spark is something. Spark is joy, isn't it? It's what to me, I think, spark is what energizes me, and things that energize me are things that bring me joy and comfort.
Yeah.
And enable me to get onto that upward spiral of flourishing.
Yeah.
So yeah, spark's a great one. I love it.
Yeah.
I ask people what's their superpower.
Ah, right. Yeah.
So if I was to ask you, what's your superpower?
What's my superpower?
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot now. So
I think probably to see the humour and see the best in a situation. So even think when things are terrible, like I've had quite a lot of crisis and emergency situations, I'm very calm, but I can sort of bring everyone up around me, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably my superpower.
that is a superpower, isn't it?
Well, I hope I'm probably blowing my own trumpet, but
No, but don't own your own bleeding trumpet. Don't. Do you know what I mean?
There you go.
Too often
Yeah.
we say, no, but I don't.
Yeah.
No, own it. Own
Yeah.
your gold. That's my job. I make people do this.
Yeah.
You've got to own your gold.
yeah,
Because if you don't, then who's going to do it for you? Get those positive, affirmations, as we said
Yeah.
earlier. But that's a positive affirmation. It's looking for your superpower.
yeah.
But it's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think spark is like superpower.
Yeah, because I think everyone's got superpowers.
Yeah.
And I can say not all heroes wear capes. is the old thing,
Exactly,
but-
yeah.
And I think perhaps we don't. And that it comes back to what I've just done and gone, oh, I can't say that. 'cause
Yeah.
I'm being big-headed. And that's the problem, isn't it? That
Yeah.
we just generally, as soon as we have a bit of confidence in something, we go, oh, but I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's,
And why not?
Yeah,
Why not? We should be our own biggest advocates.
yeah,
We do it for our kids. We do it for our mates. We do it for random strangers a lot of the time. Let's be honest, don't we?
yeah,
And still we'll go, oh no, but not me. My big one, I said this to you today about not asking for permission, but forgiveness.
yeah,
That's got me through so many things in life.
yeah,
And it's opened so many doors for me as well. And it sounds arrogant sometimes. But sometimes I feel if you don't put yourself out there and do it, nobody's going to come to you and say, would you like to make a podcast, Mary?
yeah,
You
no,
know?
yeah,
Would you like to do some stand-up? Now's your time, darling. Off
Yeah.
you go. Nobody's going to say that.
you've got to give yourself permission.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do wait for a permission slip,
Yeah.
either from, well, a lot of the time from their people around them, and they're like, well, I better not do that because I might upset the friendship group or whatever. I need permission from the group. And I think if you can step outside that, that's when your magic happens.
I think if you're dabbling with anything and you're interested in starting some new venture in your life, I would say start a YouTube channel or start an Instagram page or something, but don't have any of your mates on it.
Yeah,
Make it private, and then and then invite people or open it up, but have do it as an alter ego, because
Yeah.
then it removes all of that crap and all of that expectation and
Yeah.
that fear of failure, because the fear of failure isn't really us failing, it's us failing in front of everybody else. There's a lot of eyes on us, there, and I know that I say to people, what other people think of you is none of your business, but nonetheless, if you've jumped from a role, if you've been following a path and a well-trodden path that lots of people follow and might be trapped in and can't move, they're looking at you to see where you're going with it.
yeah,
There's a lot of pressure there.
definitely. Well, that comedy's a big one for that.
Yeah.
Because, as I said this morning, it's the only thing you can do is by doing it. And so
Yeah.
you will fail in front of people. There's no, every comedian worth his salt has died on their arse at some point
Yeah.
in time, and it's in front of everyone.
Yeah.
So you've just got to get over that and go, and comedians will go, oh God, I've just totally bombed there, haven't I? But then the next night they'll do exactly the same material somewhere else, and it'll be brilliant.
And it's teaching's like that as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, getting in front of a class of kids. To me, it's my area now. It doesn't bother me in the least. So when I do public speaking, it doesn't worry me. And it's quite funny because occasionally when I'm working with, like, in workshops with adults, you'll see the personalities. And I used to have that personality when I'd be going to trainings. If they were boring, I'd be the one in the back with the teenage kind of, yeah, whatever. Yeah, this is what the, what?
Yeah.
You did that already, mate. Yeah, all right, insane.
Yeah.
But it's, and they'd get very resistant to you. And I find that a bit of fun now. It's a bit of a challenge. Isn't it?
Yeah, to bring them on board by the end of it, yeah.
And if they don't, then they don't.
Yeah.
And to be able to let that go is important. I think that's a huge thing I've picked up from teaching, to be able to go in and realise that they might hate you at this moment because they don't want to be there. It's them more than what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's them more than your message.
It's their shit, not
It
yours.
is.
That's what I always say.
So let it go and drop the rope, as I say.
Yeah.
But that's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to do sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's knowing when to do it.
Yeah. Timing is everything.
Timing is everything. Yeah.
So that brings us on to success then. So this is going to be a great answer, I know. So what does success look like for you now, and has that changed over the years?
Yeah, hugely. Success for me now, you know what it's going to be. It's going to be personal alignment. It's going to be authenticity. It has to be. It has to be. It has to be. Success for me is hitting what your bliss pillars are and what my positive psychology pillars are.
Yeah.
And the positive psychology, you have your bliss, which is bravery, laughter, inspiration, spark, and success. PERMA is the backbone of positive psychology, and I've touched on a couple of them. The first one, that the positive psychologists, when they start to do the research into what makes us flourish, is positive emotion. So I ask myself, like, am I getting more positive emotion in my life than negative emotion? Doesn't mean that I'm going around the place farting, bleeding, sprinkles and
Unicorns.
that's it. You know, it's not. I'm not doing handstands and jazz hands everywhere. But am I getting more positive emotion in my life? So if I'm meeting that quota, then that's going to be part of my success. E is engagement. Am I being honest with my own creativity? Am I writing? Writing lights me up. And I stopped myself doing it for too many years, 3 decades, to my shame. I'm not doing that anymore, Mary.
No.
And if you don't like my writing, stuff it. I don't care.
Don't read it.
Don't read it. And read on.
Yeah.
If it's full of cliches, as my inner critic tells me it sometimes is, so be it.
Yeah.
So that's the creative part. And also building a business is creative. Working with clients is creative. It's a relationship. It's really important. So I think that's where I get my engagement, and ranting and dipping and all the rest. R is relationships, investing in relationships, and not just stumbling into, friendships, or being measured, being organised, setting times in the calendar where you show up for your friends. So like, I've got my best mates from school, not my school, but from the school I used to work in. We've kept together, the mums group, and they're all coming around to mine tomorrow night to watch the Eurovision. Yay,
right,
go Ireland. But the relationships with your family, and they've done that study, the longest study ever. You've probably heard of it, the Harvard study of longevity, called I think it's The Good Life. And Robert Waldinger has done loads of work on this, and his biggest takeaway, the people who lived, this 80 years they've been studying this cohort of men, and the people who lived the longest and had the best health and were the happiest had the strongest relationships. And they weren't just romantic relationships, but they were the people who invested in relationships.
That's
So
the connection.
That's the connection again. M is meaning and purpose. So when I was not doing this, I was always desperate to I always had it.
Yeah.
That spark was there, and I expressed it in the classroom, teaching film studies or English or media. And I loved teaching those subjects, and I still do. I love those subjects. But I wanted more. And that meaning and purpose, it was really, I think sobriety gave me meaning and purpose, because it made me aware and awake.
Yeah, awake is the key.
And I think that's why my handle is @sunrisesobriety, and underneath I've written wide awake to an alcohol-free life, because I believe it.
Yeah.
And the final one is accomplishment, and that's achievement, but that can be mini accomplishments, like me doing a little workout in the garden this morning. That's a huge accomplishment for me. Drinking loads of water and having to go to the loo every 10 minutes today. That's a huge accomplishment. Many things, little goals that you can set yourself. If you're hitting all of the areas of PERMA as often as you can in a day, that to me is success.
Yeah.
Now it's changed. Historically, success would have been the usual, the things that we think we want, what psychologists call miswanting, the family, the settling down, having enough money to be comfortable. These are all really important, don't get me wrong. And holidays, traveling. And they're still really important, and there's still something that I aspire to have in my life, but that isn't the ultimate marker of success, and nor is getting to the top of whatever ladder is there. If you don't feel aligned, then what's the point? There's no point.
No.
And you're just essentially going on a one-way collision course to burnout. That's what I've found with people I've worked with in the corporate world, people I've worked with in education. The work can only go so far. But I must admit, I was never, nobody, anyone who's listening to this who knows me would never be sitting there going, well, you were never one of those people as a worker. It wasn't like, this is me, I'm very successful, I'm wearing power shoulders. And no, that wasn't ever me. But that's what I think success is: alignment and authenticity.
I love that, because that's a real measurable, you've almost put a measurable structure around it, but not in a restrictive way or like a productivity way, but things that you could actually say, as you say, on those 5 things on your hand, you can check in every day and go, what have I achieved those today? And when you start to reflect, you start to be more aware, and when you're more aware, you start to put these things in your life more, to actively include them into your life, so that you are, and even on bad days, it's okay. Success isn't you're soaring at the peak of that mountain all the time. Success is actually, again, being authentic and being aligned and going, I feel like shit today, actually. I'm actually going to stay in bed and binge watch Succession. Well, you do need that, don't you? You need a wallow sometimes, but it's getting back up the next day.
And it's knowing that this is what I'm using today as a form of self-soothing, but it's not something that I'm going to do all the time. And because you could really lie to yourself a lot by saying, well, there's a big chasm really between self-care and just sloth.
17 days in of watching Friends has strayed from self-care.
It's like
into probably a bit of a
come
depressive
on now.
episode.
But success. So what's success to you?
To me, it's freedom. The freedom to choose how I fill my days. And I'm actually doing the manifestation. I've got a book, and my manifesto is I am building a life of contentment, filled where I get to choose how I fill my days and how I help other people. And that's like my daily manifesto. So for me, success is that freedom to be able to do what I want, but whilst helping others as well. That is
integral, actually. And I forgot to mention that, but that came into the relationship side of things. When I talk about relationships and investing, it's the giving back bit that makes it magic. And that's why I think the work that we do, it's so important to be of service in some way. That is when you are aligned when you're in service, aren't you? And I think you're not doing it we need to get paid, and we have businesses, and we have hungry mouths to feed, let's be honest about this. But it's not, because we've invested our time in ourselves and in what we believe in, I think that it's an honest cross that we're earning.
Absolutely.
And we bloody deserve it.
And it's worth it. It's a value.
It is a value.
You've got to put a value on it. And money is just an exchange of energy. We just have it. It just has a name, doesn't it? The olden days, you might have been a healer, and you would have bartered that for your eggs or some meat. So it's only the same thing, but money just has a very negative connotation now, doesn't it? That,
I've changed my appreciation of money as well, interestingly enough, because when I was younger, and that comes into the success thing, I think that ambition and all of that to me was a bit dirty, a bit like a bit like, oh, I'm not that kind of Tory, you know, pushy,
pinstripe shoe.
yuppie. Money's bad, I'm a socialist. And now I think money's great. You can do a lot of great things with money.
Yeah.
Can't you?
Yeah.
You can help a lot of people with
Exactly,
money.
yeah.
You can treat a lot of people with money, and you can treat yourself.
Yeah.
Why? And that's going to tick all of my boxes with PERMA, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Yeah.
So bring it on, I say.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
So our final question then is, we ask people to say, what do you think your younger self would say if they could see you now? So maybe you when you moved to Ireland and everything was very difficult to pinpoint.
That's so hard. I was so lost, because it was really difficult. And I was trying to be brave for my parents, whilst also being a bit bolshy, and trying to be brave for my sister and brother because I was the oldest, and they get very upset seeing me kind of getting into scraps with boys. But I also kind of enjoyed it as well in a mad way. It's terrible. But I think that version of me would say, cool. I think she'd say cool.
Yeah.
Because I was pretty feisty despite it.
Yeah.
I think my teenage self would say, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I think my 30-year-old self would say, Jesus, about time. I think that's what she'd say.
Yeah.
Or thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, through the ages.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, because I can't say the younger version of me, because we evolve so much, don't we?
Yeah.
We change so much, and it's so important to realise that I'm not the same person that I was with that friendship that I had with my friends when I was 11 to now. And some people find that hard to kind of understand.
Yeah,
we do, don't we, as well?
Yeah, I think people know, if they know you in an era, shall we say, and then you change, it's hard for people to not still see you as the person that they knew, isn't it? And then that also holds up a mirror to perhaps the fact that they haven't changed much as well.
I think my essence was always the same.
Yeah.
That's the thing I love about the character strengths. I think if I had done the character strength test then, it didn't exist then. Positive psychology wasn't really a field then. It's only 20 years old. But if it had been and I had done it, I think I would have definitely, because when you feel alive and when you feel at your best, that's, so my peak times, that's when those 5 character strengths would be showing. Yeah. And I can pinpoint times in my life when I've been at my best, and clearly I've been exhibiting all of those 5. Yeah. I'd urge people to take the test. It's viacharacter.org.
I was going to say, can you take the tests on that? I'm
it's for
literally
free.
Going to rush off and do that.
Honestly, get the kids to do it. Yeah. Get the wife to do it. Get everybody you know to do it. Yeah. I'm evangelical. You think they'd be paying me? I should actually write to the VIA Institute. But it's brilliant. Yeah. And just knowing your strengths is going to make you, a lot happier. But if you can try and actively use them. So if you go onto my website, lizfolan.com, or follow me on the socials. I was just going to ask you
where we can find you, because I'll put it in the show notes as well.
You can find me on Instagram. I do a lot. That's at Sunrise Sobriety. On LinkedIn, I'm Liz Folen, MSc, Positive Psych, because I paid for that master's, so I'm going to bloody put the letters up there.
Too really right.
Sometimes I feel a bit like an arsehole, but it's there. Yeah. So that's where you can find me there. But I share a lot of content there, and then lizfolan.com. You can't really do much with the website because I'm still not that competent with it, but I do put blogs up there. Yeah. And I do, as I say, I launch challenges all the time, and the current one is the Rise Sunshine Challenge, which I don't know when this is going out. This might not go out till...
Probably, maybe in a month's time.
Oh, well, that's okay. It's still the summer. Yeah. This is going to be for the whole of the summer until the end of August.
Right, okay, definitely. Yeah.
And I've got 4 pillars, RISE. R is for reflection. So I urge people, this is where you use your strengths, to do 1, 2, 3. 1 win from the past 24 hours, anything at all. 2 strengths that you have used in the past 24 hours from the character strengths. Write all 24 hours somewhere on a notebook and then just refer back. And 3 gratitudes. Yeah. So you do that every day. I is inspiration. Read something that's going to develop you. So there's the Badass Book Club I mentioned is Indistractable this month. You can read it, you can listen to it. I'd prefer if you read it, because we're losing the art of reading.
Yeah, I can't listen to audiobooks because I fall asleep.
Well, so. I like to listen to them. I like to do both, to be honest, but I'd say do that. That's the inspiration. Find some inspiration for half an hour every day. S is self-acceptance. Be aware of your self-talk. So I've called you out a few times today. Be aware. But also the other side of that is your social interaction side. Yeah. So if you have to drop the rope, which I've had to do, and I've done it because I'm on this challenge, there's been a few times when I could have actually pursued a line of argument and gone, no, take a step back, Liz. It's not worth the energy, mate. Yeah. So be aware of your self-talk. Be aware of your social interactions. That's your self-awareness piece. And the last bit is E, which is exercise for 20 minutes every single day. Right. So you're doing yours.
I am doing.
Yes. Starting tomorrow.
Yes.
You're starting tomorrow. So you can start this rise tomorrow. RISE. Get a notebook. Really nice notebook. And in that notebook, every single day. Don't get me started on stationery. Love a good bit of stationery.
Addicts, you see? Another thing to be addicted to.
Oh, and I use a fountain pen as well, Mary.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Got to have the fountain pen. So the stationery, you get yourself a nice notebook, and just every single day, I do it in the morning. It's part of my morning routine when I do my morning pages, which is a whole other episode, but it's so interesting. Do my morning pages, 3 sides of A4. I'm not asking people to do that. That's a bit too much to start with. But then I do my 1, 2, 3, 1 win, 2 strengths, and 3 gratitudes. Then a little bit of exercise and drink water and loads of coffee.
Yeah.
Loads of coffee. And honestly, it stands to me, whatever the season, if I've got a little routine like that.
Yeah.
It's golden.
Brilliant. I'm going to try that. So I'm going to do it, not try it.
No, yes, you're going to do it, and I am going to harass you and text you and annoy you.
Good. I love it.
Accountability buddy.
That's what I need.
Well, it's so hard. You've got to, don't you?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Honestly, one of the most illuminating chats that I think I've ever had.
Thank you so much.
So good.
I've loved every minute of it. I love this setup. I just love it's so professional. Well, it's been lovely to be here. So thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. Can't wait for this one to go out.
Yay! Thank you.